All right. What are we up to?
Rabbi, did you say that there are malachim in Atzilus?
Yeah.
Yeah? Moshe and I were speaking about that. Like, we never heard that before.
Intellectual malachim, no?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. Malachim whose avodah is Memoichi. Avodah Alu Yira Sichliyim.
We read in Tanya it's in Bria.
I think that the Srofim are from Atzilus.
So it's two kind of Sichlim, of Bria and Atzilus?
Yeah. So we learned about the Ifanim and Chayas. Okay. Okay. So we are on that line, Takei. Ifanim Chayas HaKedesh, Chayas HaSrofim. That's where we're up to. Everybody has a place? So in this ois now, the Rebbe is describing a third type of his boinanus. Before we spoke about his boinanus that brings about ahava, and then the boinanus brings about yira, and then there is his boinanus that allows, that does not reflect on the person himself, ahava v'yira, but allows him to simply appreciate the greatness of the Creator himself. This is called Listakola bi'ikola de Malko, to glance into the glory of the King himself. Ahava is when one appreciates all the goodness that a king bestows upon them. Yira is one recognizes that the king is inaccessible. Like I said, the king is hidden behind his chambers, in his chambers. He's inaccessible because he is remote. Then there is a different aspect in the king. When the king comes out to the people, but he comes out not in terms of getting down to their level. What do you need? What are you missing? This is the chesed. He comes out merely to show that the people should appreciate the king himself. Not what he does for them, but his own presence. So the way that Tanya expresses it, that actually we can even appreciate it even in our experience. When a very high official, let's say the President of the United States, comes to town, so I don't know if you ever saw, it's a whole entourage. First there is a slew of motorcycles running ahead. Then there are all kinds of flagged limousine cars. And someplace in between there is the president. And then followed by another duplicate entourage. What is this all about? This is not just for security. This is a show of respect, a show of what type of person this is. So, in our society, we don't have a king. So what is it that we want to show the president? Why do we show such great honor to the president? Because the honor of the president represents the honor of the country. If you don't show respect to the president, you're actually defaming the country itself. So that this entire structure, entire entourage, is in order for people to appreciate their own country and respect it and see the glory that's involved in the country. This is the way it is, so to speak, in a democratic country, that all honor is bestowed on people because they're representing and they're serving the country. A king is a different system, has a different perspective. But from this we can understand that if you want that this type of demonstration, this type of show, does not have any implication in terms of Ahava and Yira, any message. It simply demonstrates and impresses of the greatness of the entity itself, the glory, the beauty of the king. So the Rebbe says that by Hashem, similarly, even though we can see Hashem, when the goodness that He bestows upon us, we can reflect, we see. The awe and yira we can also relate. But the fairest, this is something which requires us to see Him directly, but we can't see Him directly. So therefore, how can one experience this evening? It is a Kol B'Kol de Malka, that he reflects, or like I said before, on the entourage, reflect everything that represents him. Like the Alter Rebbe says, if a person enters into a chamber, into a sedek, and he sees thousands of people, of people of stature, respectable people, standing in respect of one person, he recognizes then what type of person he is. Even though he himself does not appreciate, does not know the person, but he sees it from the entourage. The world and the in infinite spread and the greatness in the world, both in terms of variety and in terms of the power that it represents, this all represents to us the glory of the King. In other words, everything that Hashem created has a purpose. We have the sun gives us, the sun gives you, and the moon, we have the stars. Everything Hashem created has a purpose for the benefit of the creation. There is also a certain aspect in the creation that goes beyond the creation itself. And that is just in order for us to be able to appreciate the Creator, the greatness of the Creator Himself. The infinity in the creation and the variety is not all necessarily because of practical necessities, practical needed for the creation itself. But much of it, there is also an aspect in the creation that is supposed to, that exposes, that gives us a chance to appreciate and to look into the greatness of the Creator. This is called Tiferes. And just as we are advised to reflect on the creation and see how Hashem created everything, how everything benefits us, benefits the creation. We're also advised from time to time to reflect on the greatness of the creation itself. In order to be rise up a little bit and relate to the Creator, appreciate, this is the effect, like the Alter Rebbe says, this is the effect that when the king comes out to his people to benefit, to give them the benefit of appreciating glory, the glory of their king. This lifts them. This lifts their spirit. This lifts their perception of what there is, and it actually opens up their intellect as well, so that they can perceive something greater than themselves, just for the sake of knowing, of having that experience. This is called Tiferes, the Ikora de Malka, Tiferes HaMelech.
It's a different type of Tiferes?
Hmm?
It's a different type of Tiferes?
No, what do you mean?
The regular Tiferes? Chesed, Gvura?
Yeah, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes.
The middle ground?
Yeah. Chesed and Gvura are midas with which the king relates to the creation, and Tiferes is that which represents him himself, which is also through the creation. But in the creation itself, it is the glory, the beauty, the richness that there is in the creation. Like I point out many times, that a diamond is not necessary for the creation. Gold is not necessary for the survival of the world. Why is it there? It's there in order to show that there is in the creation glory, something bigger than creation. Why? In order we should appreciate who the Creator is. The Yim came, okay, this is what we're up to. Here we have the line. The line begins with Eifanim. Yeah,
You say gold is it's the same reason, right? The gold,
I'm sorry?
gold and diamonds is also to appreciate.
Yeah. The Gemara says that gold is really doesn't fit into the world. It's incongruous with the nature of the world.
You told us.
Yeah,
Put it in
it's
water
right.
for 1,000 years and it doesn't change.
Right. The Kain, and thus miribui from the reflecting and contemplating the enormity in terms of numbers, the variety, or gdulas, and the enormity in terms of size, hanivroim, of the creatures. Yuvan gdulas eirin soiborhu will be understood and recognized the greatness of the Ein Sof, hamhave kol hanivroim, that creates all the nivroim. So the idea of Tiferes is to be able to reflect on the Creator Himself.
Riba is multitude and godless is which aspect?
Godless is in great size.
Right.
Gedulas hanivroim.
Meaning the numbers of different meaning or the numbers of each mean itself?
I'm sorry?
Like that there's so many different species, like the numbers of that itself, like there's however many millions of different species of animals, or the fact
That's ribui.
so
And Gedulas is simply the size, like the size of the sun and the stars. The significance of the size, we have to understand again that I said the Rebbe created in the world has bestowed the world with every aspect that is necessary for us to understand, as much as possible for us to understand and to relate and to appreciate. So clearly, from the perspective of Hashem, the big sun, what size, what significance is there? This is why it's necessary for us to understand and to think of things from our perspective. Meaning to say that we are impressed by this size, because for us that size is beyond what we can contemplate, beyond what we can relate to. We can relate to 1,000 miles, to 10,000 miles. We can't relate to 1,000,000 miles or 10 million miles. It's something which is beyond our conceptualization. Why did the Rebbe create such enormous creatures? In order that we should be able to appreciate something greater than we can appreciate, greater than what we can contemplate. The Rebbe could have created a smaller sun and made it a little closer to the earth, and would have exactly the same identical effect. The sun is 90 million miles away from us, 93 million miles, 140 million miles. It doesn't have to be. Can anybody surmise what that mileage is? We have to understand that everything that we observe is there intentionally for us to observe. We're not observing something accidentally. It's there intentionally for us to observe in order to impress upon us and give us certain perceptions, certain understandings. We say in davening that Hashem brings the sun out from its hiding place. Now the sun is not hiding any place. We know the sun is on the other side of the earth. It doesn't reach us because we don't see it. The sun is there. You can pick up the phone and call Australia and they'll tell you exactly where the sun is. And yet, that's what we say in davening. From Shifto, he takes the sun out from its place, raises it up. We have to understand what is a mode of relationship, a view that is a correct view of the creation. The world, Hashem created the world. And he created a perfect world. And so that, yes, the sun is on the earth and then it comes up and so forth. And the world is created in such a way that it is possible to explain all phenomena in the world in a natural way. It's possible to say, how come there's day? Something moved. How come there is night? Something moved. Perfectly natural way. You can explain the seasons in a natural way. Winter, summer, spring. And everything can be explained in a natural way, except one thing. It's unnatural that there should be a world. The whole mitzvah of the world is unnatural.
What do you mean by unnatural? You mean nature itself is unnatural?
Yeah. There's no basis for it. Once you recognize that, then the whole thing turns around. The whole perception turns around. If its whole existence is unnatural, and it is a creation, so therefore everything within it is a creation. There's no longer nature. And therefore, if you look at it from that perspective, everything is a creation. So then when the sun rises, it is the Creator who brings the sun up. When the sun sets, it's the Creator that sets the sun. When the seasons change, it is the Creator that causes the seasons change. The seasonal change. Can you hold this on? And therefore, everything that we see, if we look at it with the proper perspective, we don't allow ourselves to sink into the nature and then forget about what nature is. But we look at it from a proper perspective, from a complete and basic perspective, then everything that we see demonstrates to us and vividly shows us and relates us to Hashem's activity, to Hashem. Because this is where everything starts. It is Hashem's will that there is a world. And it's Hashem's wisdom that created the world in a certain way. Everything demonstrates the various qualities and midas of that Hashem wants us to see. And therefore, everything that there is in the creation reveals to us certain aspects of Hashem. So when you see this huge sun beyond our contemplation, it's not a natural thing, and it's not accidental, it's not pointless. It is exactly for the purpose that it should impress upon us our knowledge of Hashem in this way or that way. The day and night is that we should understand that Hashem is with us and He changes the seasons and the greatness and so forth is in order that we should appreciate the greatness of the glory of the King. These are the various appreciations, recognitions that we have in our creation. And therefore, once we recognize this perspective, then you say, yes, it's enormous. We see the glory of the Creator in the creation. There are, the scientists say that there are stars that are many, many times the size of our sun. As big as the sun is, there are stars that are many times the size of the sun. All right? But we do not see it. Therefore, the stars are not impressing upon us huge size. But the stars do impress upon us huge quantities. There are millions and billions of stars. So this is a different type of impression. And everything has its particular impression, particular message that reveals to us something about the greatness of the King.
According to what you're saying, according to approaching it from a logical point of view, it would make more sense that nothing should exist than that anything should exist. But it's through the grandeur of creation that we comprehend how truly unique, how truly special the creation is. Meaning, if the creation was, so to speak, a little bit more mundane, the sun was a little bit closer, a little bit smaller, so then it wouldn't be so easy to see within the creation itself the wondrousness that it actually exists at all. But I mean, if the sun was
no, the wonderness would be there anyway of the creation, but we wouldn't see the wonderness of the Creator.
But why isn't one less star? I mean, we wouldn't see the wonderness of. I mean, we have to assume everything has its everything is exactly there in order to pick it. So if the sun wasn't 93 million, but 92 million miles away, this one really was a million miles closer, it would be any more able to grasp. You can grasp 92 more than you can grasp 93. If the sun was a little bit smaller.
That I cannot answer. I mean, the precise size and the precise distance, I really cannot answer, what impression that difference makes. And I'm saying...
But I mean, as a general point, why seemingly does the point of reference need to be set so high? Meaning, we're not any closer to understand how big the sun is doesn't make us understand.
We want to make, the Rebbe wants to make the point of reference both. On the one hand, that we should be able to refer to it, and at the same time, it should be beyond our contemplation, our ability to contemplate. Because if we cannot refer to it, then it doesn't tell us anything. And if we are able to contemplate and relate to it, again, it doesn't impress us. Nobody gets affected by knowing by the size of the moon, for instance. But you do get affected by the perfect proximity between the sun and the moon, and how the moon reflects the sun, and the cycles of the moon, the sun, or the moon. That is a wondrous thing. Yeah.
Before when you said that everything in the world, that everything in the world can be seen in a natural way, yeah. And then you said, but the only thing that is not natural is that there is a world. And I thought you just if you can explain exactly what you mean, because if we see like how the scientists think, even that, I want to know exactly what you mean by that. Like you say that it doesn't make sense that there should be a world Piteva, or what aspect you're talking about. I just want to understand this, because there's people that actually they think that they can explain even naturally how the world even exists, not only the
Okay, well that does not make sense. It only makes sense to someone who cannot relate to a godly created world. And therefore, he has to insist that it's natural. And therefore, he will accept, even if it doesn't make sense, he will accept explanation that don't make sense.
He believes in nature.
But it doesn't really make sense. The soul of man does not have a root in the ape.
Of the sleep.
Cool.
Doesn't. But if you look at the body, there is a bodily similarity. But then you have to discount completely the soul, the intellect. Yeah. Okay. So from this, Yuvan Gdula Seirin Soy Boruhu Hamhave Kol HaNivroim. So what the Rebbe is saying here, look at these words, by contemplating the enormity, both numerical and size-wise of the Nivroim, you can understand the greatness of the Oir Ein Sof. Oir Ein Sof is Ein Sof, is infinite. Everything that we are observing in the world is finite. But this finite entity which we can refer to, as I said before, we can refer to, but we cannot fathom it. That allows us to look into Ein Sof, into Ein Sof, because it's not Ein Sof.
What does that mean, look into answer?
Into the greatness of the Ein Sof, that there is no limit at all. Even though the creatures that he made are all finite.
To grasp the fact that we cannot grasp it.
We can, right, and we can relate to the greatness of the creator of this great creation. He's going to elaborate a little more on this. Ukmeisha Kosuv, as the Pasuk says, Hashomayim Mesaprim Kvoit Keil. Pasuk Meshmayim Mesaprim Kvoit Keil. The Shomayim, as we say davening every Shabbos. It's a Pasuk in Tehillim actually. That the heavens Mesaprim, they relate Kvoit Keil, the glory of the King, of Hashem. Pirush betagum yenason. The Targum Yonason explains it with the following translation. The mistaklim bishmayo, those that look into the sky, mishtoyin yikoro da Hashem. They relate and they talk about the glory of Hashem. In other words, the Targum translates this not as we normally that the Shemayim themselves are telling us, but somebody who looks at the Shemayim, he will be aroused to speak about the greatness in the Korah Hashem. Or Pirush. What is the meaning of this Targum Yonason? The Mistaklim Bishmayo. What's meant Mistaklim Bishmayo? What are you looking to the sky? What are you looking at? Hu al derech is similar to what the Pasuk says, you more meinechem uru mi boreila. Lift up your eyes up high and see who created these. Look at this Pasuk and you will see what we discussed before. When you look up in the sky, you don't see who created it. You see the creations. But when you see wondrous creations that you cannot possibly fathom and possibly grasp, through that you see the greatness of the one who created it. See, Mi Boroel, who created it. And therefore, when you reflect on this, you could see the one who created it. Mi Boroel. As he also writes, as it says in Medrash Tilim, Posuk Hashomayim is happening Kveit Keil. So the Medrash Tilim says on this Posuk like this: Moshol legibre shenichnas lamdina. Now this is compared, this is to be analyzed like a giber, this hero, this powerful man. Shenichnas lamdina, he entered a Medina, a country. And we don't know how great is his power. But then amongst the observers there was one pikachechot, one wise person. Omar, and he said, by observing the stones that he is playing with, from that you know his power, his great strength. You can't tell on the person how strong he is, but when you see that he is playing with huge rocks, you see that he's powerful. Kach, likewise, Hashamayim is happening Kveit Keil. This is the end of the Medrash. The Shamayim are relating the glory of the king. V'hainu, which means again the same what I mentioned before, the Migdei le'anivroi, that by contemplating the great creatures, the Shamayim v'chol tzvom, that are present, that we can observe. The Shemaim, all the hosts, all that that fills the heavens. We know the greatness of the Ein Sof, who created them. And this is the Kvoid, the glory of the king. By
Ms. Gosh's place?
Mm-hmm. You know the Kuwait king. Sheyuvam b'Omek Yeser. This principle we will understand at a deeper level in Yemasha Kosu B'Targum Yenesen. This principle that it says in Targum Yenesen, Shalidei Hayistaklos B'Shomayim, that by looking into the Shomayim, Histaklos, that means just looking, but contemplating what we see in the Shomayim, then Mesapri Mikora the Malka, then we will begin to relate and talk about the Korah the Malka. Hainu Shahainu, which means Shemei Hashomayim Utzvo Hashomayim, that from the contemplation and viewing on the Shomayim Utzvo Hashomayim, and all the hosts, everything that fills the Shomayim, Onu Yoidim. From this we know as Bechinas Oid Ein Soiv Habilti Bal Gvul. From this we actually know the aspect of the Oid Ein Soiv, which is who is Bilti Bal Gvul, who is without limit. Shalamai Lo Mi Bechinas Hoilamis. That which is above worlds. This is what the Rebbe says is B'Omek Yeser, on a deeper level. Before we spoke about simply that you see the greatness that all of these things were created so that you will appreciate and see the glory and the beauty of the King. So you should be able to appreciate the beauty of the King. But now he says beyond that actually from the Shomayim we see something that is beyond the Shomayim altogether. The Shomayim themselves are actually Baalei Gvul, are finite. But through the Shomayim we can actually recognize the presence of that which is Bilti Bal Gvul, that which is without limit. Which means Shalamayim B'Chinas Olam, that which is above the whole inner worlds. Which does not have worldly parameters. Shazeh Omar, and this is what the Pasuk says, You more meinechem uruhu mi boleila. Lift out your eyes up, and see the one who created these. Hamoitze b'mispor tzvom. This is part of the same Pasuk. Hamoitze b'mispor tzvom. The one who brings forth by number tzvom, they are hosts, and ish loy ne'edor. None of them are lost. Ne'edor are absent and get lost, get them evaporates.
Sorry, what's Hamoitze b'mispor tzvom?
Hamoitze b'mispor tzvom, he brings forth all of these hosts, all of these stars. Moin and Mispor like a Chorim. He gives Hashem knows the number of all of the stars. And you know where each star is. And he puts them all in the exact spot where he wants them. So you see a Koyach Ein Sof. Ish loy ne'edor. None of them is lost.
Also ish doesn't mean a person.
No, ish means each. V'hainu. And what is the point in this? Ma shelo yeh shinui v'hefsek b'hahashpo. The fact that there is no change or interruption in this hashpo, in that koyach, in that power that creates them and sustains them. Mizeh nire, from this we can see asher koyach bilti bal gvul, that a koyach without limit, manhig umechaya oisam. leads and sustains them. This is a very important principle that we have in our world, that although everything that we actually observe is a finite entity, and yet through this finite entity we can actually see an infinite quality. In what? In the fact that there is no change in them. And there is no diminishing in them. How do we see the infinite power? Ki mitzad chayus atzmoi shemulu boshbei. Because mitzad, from the perspective of chayus atzmoi, of the life force that is contained within the entity itself, shemulu boshbei, that is contained in it, in each one of the creatures. Kiven shehu mugbal, since that the creature itself ultimately has a limit, an end. Kiven shehu mugbal does not refer to the end, it refers to the chayus. The chayus that is contained in each creature, being that the chayus itself, the power that is vested in each creature, is limited. Why do we say that the power that's in it is limited? Shebeguf mugbal, because in a finite body, ef sheshiyeh chayus sheboi bilti mugbal. Because in a finite body, it's impossible that the chayus that is contained within it should be without limit. Instead, behechrech, it is imperative, it's a logical imperative. Shehachayus gamki mugbal, that the chayus, imperative. It's a must, it's a logical conclusion. Shehachayus gamki mugbal, that the chayus that is contained in each one of these creatures is also mugbal, is also limited. Because we see that it's a finite entity. And a finite entity cannot possibly house an infinite chayus. And therefore, from the perspective of that chayus, mitzad this chayus, hoyonechla shu mishtana. So therefore that entity would have weakened and it would change. And there would be some interruption and some change in the hashpah that it bestows upon us. What it can do. When the sun gives us light, if the power of the light of the sun would have been dependent only on what is contained in the sun itself, it would have to weaken, it would have to change and interrupt. And the very fact that when we observe that there is no interruption in that presence, since that all of them, all creatures, continue to exist bemin. They don't interrupt, there is no interruption in their existence.
What does bemin?
Right, I'll explain in a second. There's no interruption in their existence. Now, the truth is that when we look at the creatures, in the sky, like the sun and the moon and the stars, they're the very same sun that is giving us light, the very same sun, has been giving light and power and energy to the world for thousands of years. There was no substitution. So there it's called kayomim beish, which means ish lo neder, each one, the very same that Hashem created in Sheshes and Ebreshis, that's the very same one that persists and continues to exist. On our earth, in our world, there isn't kayomim beish. Everything that is here, ultimately changes. There are trees that are very, very old, but at some point in time, everything dies out, everything changes. So kayomim beish, ish means each, the very same one, doesn't exist in our world. But in our world we have kayomim b'min. Min means the type of creature, the species. The species, each species has inherent in it the capability to exist forever. Kayomim b'min.
The possibility meaning that the fact that human beings have managed to kill off certain species of animals doesn't at all show in contradiction to this, because if not for that intervention, it would continue to exist until.
Right. That does not diminish the initial capability.
I have a different question.
Yeah.
Doesn't the fact that species evolved into different species over change of whatever time, natural causes?
Species, this is a very big misunderstanding. Species do not evolve in other species.
Okay.
Species evolve in different variation of the same species.
Adapt.
They adapt different variations. The change of weather, the change of location. The Gemara speaks about it. The Gemara says some people that live in swamps, their feet are swollen. This is a different species.
I don't know. Okay.
Smaller?
Swollen.
Oh.
Swamp people. Swollen feet.
Some people, the Asians, have elongated eyes. They're half closed. That's a different species? No, because the sun shines in a certain way, so they keep their eyes half closed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a different species. They adapt to various conditions, but the species is the very same. There is no jump over from one species to another. It doesn't exist. This whole thing is a farce.
Makes sense.
The species were created from Ma'aseh Bereshis.
I feel like a behemoth.
Huh?
I feel like a behemoth.
Why?
Asking that question.
No, please, don't ever.
No, it's joking.
We should not show harbor a question, a suffix, chas v'sholem, in what we're learning, and not ask because we're embarrassed. But this kayomim b'min is literally a miraculous thing. There is nothing in the human nature that says that he should be able to reproduce. Nothing. As a matter of fact, he's shocked every time a baby is born. He says, "Wow, where did this come from?" It's not something that he creates with his intellect. He doesn't understand what it is. It's an inner power that's completely beyond his comprehension. This is why we say that this is an enormously precious, a deep aspect in the human being that is beyond the human comprehension. You have to know that this is, I would not to say, a godly and a holy thing. It's beyond comprehension. Not only that, there is nothing in a tree that says the tree has to produce seed to be able to reproduce another tree like this. What's in a piece of wood that says that this piece of wood has to produce a seed that will be able to produce another piece of wood like this? Clearly, this is a godly presence. What is the godly presence? We're finishing now. Because Hashem created every species. He created the species with its limits, but the species itself should not be limited. Because it's God's creation. Everything that God creates is infinite. So therefore He created a finite entity that can maintain itself indefinitely.
That's the first, yeah?
From this you see the glory, the Ein Sof. In other words, the world actually, even though we're looking at a finite world, in truth, if you really want to contemplate and see what you're looking at, you will see an infinite quality. You feel the infinity in the world. It's not a finite world. And seeking this infinity, this is looking at the King Himself, because it's not world that you're looking at. This is not world. It's not within the nature of the world. This is looking at the King Himself, looking at godly presence in the world. The ability to reproduce and all that, that's a godly presence in the world. Okay, gentlemen. What?
Scary.
Scary? Why is it scary?
When you think about it,
It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to glorify you. It's meant to open your mind. The reason it's scary is because we think that we can grasp everything. It's our little world. We are in control. And we realize, no, it's much bigger than what we think it is. Then we say, oh, it's scary. But it's not meant to scare you. It's meant for you to recognize that it's bigger. And you should,
Maybe that's what's scary.
and you should recognize that it's bigger, it's greater, and that you should actually live in this greater world. And appreciate it. And respect it. Respect yourself.
it's scary to understand how it's great, and I'm not related to it. I understand how it's great, but like 5 minutes I understand, the whole day I don't understand. But I think what I do,
This is why Hashem has created this world in such a way that He shows you a finite entity, so that you should be able to contemplate and remain who you are, not be overwhelmed. But intellectually, you should understand that there's a greater reality. And the point of this understanding is, the point and the purpose of this understanding is that this will give you the strength to guide yourself also. And understand that your actions are much more significant than you think. You can do great things, you can do good things and not good things. This will give you encouragement to do good things, because you feel you're part of a great presence. Like we say all the time, I wake up in the morning, this is our classic illustration. Wake up in the morning and say, what's porn? I'll go to sleep. Oh, look, there's something going on over here. I want to get up. I want to participate in this greatness. The king is here.
But it's not a habit.
Huh?
But it's not a habit.
It's not a habit?
So it's a lesson, right?
What?
It's not a habit getting up in the morning.
It shouldn't be a habit. It should be, and Shulchan doesn't say it should be a habit. It says you should reflect. Hi, gentlemen. What? Okay, I'll talk to Darwin, I'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Sure, very sure.
Yeah, okay. Wonderful.